Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Connecting Diaspora for Development, a dialogue on diaspora engagement. My name is Geertre Lano. I work at IOM Regional Office in Brussels as the Senior Specialist on Labor Mobility and Human Development, and I'm very happy to be your host for this webinar today. We're very pleased to see so many participants of many different institutions who are joining us to discuss about diaspora engagement, which is indeed a very important topic for IOM, but also for all of us. Diaspora can play a very important role in promoting sustainable development. And this is exactly what we would like to discuss today, giving particularly also the voice to some of the diaspora who have supported sustainable development in their countries of origin, hearing different experiences, but also hearing from panelists from different institutions, sharing their views. Perhaps we can have a look at the agenda for today, if we can move to the next slide. Good. So we will start with a short introduction on the CD4D project. CD4D stands for Connecting Diaspora for Development, and it's a project that has been implemented by our office in the Netherlands for many years. So Nina Staal, who's here with us today, the program coordinator, will tell us a bit more about the CD4D project, and we'll also watch a video. After that, we will hear two testimonies from CD4D diaspora ambassadors, two experts of the diaspora who have contributed to the CD4D project by supporting initiatives in their country of origin. We have Jella Kayani, who's a lawyer of the Iraqi diaspora. Hello, Jella. And we also have Zuhur Ismail, who's a member of the Somali diaspora. After that, we will introduce a dossier on diaspora inclusion that was published by the broker IOM and Partos. And we have Kiza with us, who's knowledge broker at the broker, who will introduce this diaspora dossier and then also lead a panel discussion where we will hear from Charlotte Müller of the University of Maastricht, Frida Ntarangwi, entrepreneur at Zidi Circle, and Marina Diboma, Deputy Managing Director of the Netherlands African Business Council. So we have a very interesting program for the day with many different experts and diasporas joining us. Of course, we also like to hear from you, from all the participants in the audience. So if you have a question, if you would like to, take the floor and make a contribution, you can use the chat. You will see in the chat the option to send your messages to all panelists. So it's important you send it to all panelists because that means that we will all receive your question. I will be able, hopefully, to respond or give you the floor. So I hope that works for everyone. And with that, I'm happy to pass on to the first item on the agenda, which is the introduction of the CD4D, Connecting Diaspora for Development project. And I'm very happy to hand over to Nina Staal, Program Manager at IOM the Netherlands, who's responsible for the CD4D project. Nina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Geertre, for the introduction, and thank you all of you that have joined us today. It's great to have this discussion this morning. I work at IOM the Netherlands, and I'm joined here also with my team, Zia, Doreen, Kieran, and Uzoma, who all contribute to the implementation of CD42, but of course, particularly also joined by participants, our ambassadors, who will share a few words later. So we're really happy to have this discussion with you today. The Connecting Diaspora for Development project is a project that runs through June 2019 until the end of June 2022. It's a project that is in its second phase, but that is a successor of earlier projects, all managed by IOM the Netherlands, and encompassing approximately 15 years of experience in diaspora engagement programming from the side of IOM the Netherlands. In this program, we specifically focused on making the connection between diaspora experts and demand in countries of the countries that we target in a specific project. So this means that we focus on knowledge transfer, and recently we've also added to this a project on the support for diaspora entrepreneurship. Currently in the project we focus on 4 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, and Somalia. But over the past 15 years in total, we've supported approximately 30 different countries and approximately 1,500 short-term assignments for knowledge transfer. All of this has been supported by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for which we are very, very grateful. So today we're very pleased to present the project and to also discuss with participants, with partners present here today, and the broader audience, stakeholders here today, about the project, but also specifically on how diaspora expertise can contribute to development of countries of origin. So we're very happy to have this discussion with you this morning. I will leave it at this because we would like to now show you a video that we've produced in the context of CD4D that very vividly shows what CD4D is about, what we do, and specifically how important diaspora are for the implementation of the project. So please take it away.
So this was the video of the CD4D project. I hope it gave you an idea what the program is about. And of course, Nina is still with us. Should you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to use the chat. I think that in the chat now we also have the link to the video and where you can find more information about the project. So feel free to visit the project website. I think it's now time to hear from our diaspora ambassadors, because we have with us 2 diaspora experts who actually contributed to the CD4D project and did several assignments. We have Jela Kayani, who is a lawyer specialized in international law and investigation of war crimes of Kurdish origin. And we also have Zuhur Mohammed Ismail, financial specialist and business advisor of Somali origin. Both of them agreed to share with you today their stories and their experience of contributing back to the sustainable development of their countries. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. Good. We will start with Zuhur. Zuhur, can you hear us?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, Zuhur.
Hello.
Let me perhaps first introduce you. So Zuhur lives in the Netherlands since 1991, and she has a Somali roots. She has completed 3 assignments for IOM as a financial specialist at the Ministry of Justice in Somaliland, and she helped them setting up an accountable financial system in the fight against corruption. Wow, Zuhur, that sounds really amazing. I'd be really curious to hear a bit more about your assignment. But first of all, can you tell us, have you always lived in the Netherlands?
I have, for most of the part, I have lived in the Netherlands. I've also lived in London and New York for a short period of time, but that was because of my study program and for work experience. But most of the time was in Holland in the Netherlands, yes.
But you still feel connected with Somalia?
I do. I was very fortunate to have been raised by a mother who felt that it was important for me to also learn about the culture and also know about my background. So we have been back a few times for holiday purposes, which was also, I think, one of the main reasons why I gained an interest in returning back home and seeing what the possibilities are of me going back there and transferring knowledge or being able to help wherever I can help.
Yeah. And what was your assignment about?
My first assignment was in 2017. It was for the financial department. Like you said, it was to set up a financial accounting system to fight corruption. As many of the participants that attendees know, unfortunately, corruption is a very big problem in a lot of developing countries. But also lack of resources, which is part of the reason as well why there's no transparency in financial accounting systems. So I went there for initially 3 months, which turned into a assignment of, I think, 9 months.
Oh,
But luckily, we were able to set up an accounting system and also create a financial policy. And also at the same time, do a lot of capacity building because, of course, it's a very new program for them. They don't know well, how to use accounting systems. So a lot of capacity buildings, transfer of knowledge was also part of the project.
oh, wow, very interesting. And I have two questions. Like, first of all, it sounds like a very challenging assignment. I can imagine, after so many years in the Netherlands, going back to Somalia, how was that for you, that experience? And did you face some challenges? How did you overcome that? And maybe a second question, do you feel that, you had an impact with this assignment?
Let me start with the
Yeah.
first question. Challenges. It was very challenging. For me personally, being raised in the Netherlands, I always thought that I had still a little bit of my old culture in me, but I've realized I have a very Dutch way of working, which is very direct, very straight to the point,
Very punctual, perhaps.
Exactly. And that is something that they are not used to. So in the beginning, it was them teaching me how to work in their business environment, and me adapting a lot to that because one thing we tend to forget is we are working in their environment. It's their territory, and we are only there as an advisor and as someone who wants to help, but we are not there to tell them that what they are doing is wrong, and to basically like a mother pinpoint everything like, oh no, not this, and that was not my purpose. So in the beginning, it was I don't want to call it necessarily a struggle, but it was a learning experience for me, for them to compromise together and find a mid ground on how we should work together. Took me about 2-3 months, but after that, luckily, we understood each other very well, and we were able to develop not only a business relationship but also a personal relationship outside of work. And why I say outside of work as well, because it's important for these people to understand that you are not a threat to them. As someone from a Western society with a proper education that they did not enjoy, when you come there, you are a very big threat to them. They're very scared that you are going to take their job or that they will get fired. So the first thing to make sure is to always tell them and make sure they know that you're only there for help, and that is it. And if there's any way, form that you can help them, whether it be at work or just to broaden their horizon about what is outside of Somalia, so be it. I was willing to help.
Great. And do you feel you had an impact? Because I can imagine, to set up a financial system in the fight against corruption, it's not an easy task. Did you manage to achieve that?
Fine. At the end, I finally managed to achieve it. They have a very simple but efficient financial accounting system now that they know how to run. And I think I was very fortunate that the management level was also willing and able to help me with it, and were open to new suggestions and to new ways of working. It took some time to create the financial policy, but that now as well is being used. And I personally hope that I did cause an impact. I cannot answer that myself. The people there are
We
the
should
best.
ask the ministry, yeah.
I've been trying to be humble, but I hope I did. I hope I did. So yes.
I believe you did, and it's very impressive that you invested all this time to contribute back to Somalia and share your skills. Indeed, you're fortunate to have an education that maybe they didn't get, and it's fantastic to see how you managed to contribute this expertise back to your country. So really congratulations for that. And I would now like to hear also from Jella. Jella, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jella, we can hear you well. So Jella is actually of Kurdish descent and came to the Netherlands as an 8-year-old refugee. Now she's a lawyer and she built up a lot of experience in investigating war crimes, also communicating with marginalized groups and war documentation. Angela worked in Erbil. I believe she's currently still there, and she is supporting the investigation commission that was set up to prosecute ISIS war crimes.
Yes.
Wow, Jella, that sounds like quite something, huh?
Well, I'm born in Erbil, but I am in Duhok, where majority of the victims are. Yeah, that's why we have the center here. And it's an investigative court. So the commission is part of the investigative court. So we collect all of the evidence here and also the majority of the testimonies of the victims.
So, Jella, you also lived most of your life in Europe, in the Netherlands, is that right?
Yeah, I came as a refugee to the Netherlands when I was 7, 8 years old. And I've lived there until 2015 when IOM had this program as well. And I thought I went there for 3 months, but it ended up being 3 years. I think it's a habit of IOM. But I did my project for 3 months and I stayed there for other work opportunities.
Yeah. That's great. And how do you feel connected to your country of origin after so many years in the Netherlands? What sparked your interest, let's say, to go back?
I think we came as refugees, and for my parents, they thought this was temporary. We're going out, and when it's safe, we're going back. But it became a couple of more decades than years. So, but during that time, of course, you get educated about your culture, what is the situation there. And there was war, and I always found I lived in Vught, which is a village you don't know, but that's actually where the most secure prison is in the Netherlands, and also the Netherlands is also the country that has a lot of international tribunals. So I always stayed connected, and I always wanted the same thing happening for the country where I came from, justice for the victims and for the displaced communities. So,
Yeah, and can you tell us a bit more exactly about this assignment? So you specialize in the investigation of war crimes. How does that go, and then what exactly did you do?
So I studied international law, where I specialized in international law and action, and more specifically international criminal law. And that includes also specializing in genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And between 2014 and 2018-ish, ISIS had occupied or had targeted the communities of Iraq, mainly the minorities, but also the majority of civilians. And IS, the Islamic States of Iraq and Syria, had also recruited a lot of Europeans and Americans, and from Australia even, a lot of foreign fighters to join their ranks and to participate. I have to be very legal now. And there's possibility of participation of these individuals in war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. But to know what these foreign fighters have done, you need to first No, is there evidence for that? And this is where I come in. There's a database. A lot of testimonies have been conducted. The problem is that the locals here don't have education in international law. There's only one course, and that is in Baghdad, and it's and the books are from 1970. That's very old. So, and international criminal law is very new field by itself, and it's also very, very difficult. It's a difficult legal field. So, but lucky for me, I was always interested. When I was 10 years old, I was already watching the ICTY and all of these tribunals already, thanks to my parents, of course. So that's where I come in, and I help them understand what is jurisdiction, what can you do with these, what is the evidence, first of all, and how does actually international law work, how does international criminal law work, and how does universal jurisdiction work.
Yeah, very interesting. And why did you decide to stay? Because indeed, initially you signed up for a shorter assignment, but it ended up being much longer.
I came in 2015, but now also in 2020. I came, this is the worst thing. A lot of people left during that year, but when there's conflict, I don't know, I find it very fascinating what is happening to communities and societies. And I really, really enjoyed the people here as well. There's a change movement, a feeling of change in this area, at least in the Kurdistan region. And I felt more home of being like a bull, I'm not an activist, but I feel active here. That's the
yeah. Thank you so much, Jella, for sharing. I see that in the meantime, a few questions came in the chat that I would like to address both to Nina and to our two diaspora experts, Jella and Zuhur. So the first question is from Angela. And she would like to know if the CD4D project is open for persons in diaspora who are skilled but currently not working due to circumstances. Maybe they're taking a break, but they still want to do a project for their home country. Perhaps Nina, you can tell us a bit more about, possibilities of participating in CD4D. Do you have to be employed, or how does it work?
Yes, thank you very much, Angela, for the question. No, it's not a prerequisite to have to be employed at the moment that you apply. How it works is that we publish terms of references with specific assignments on our website that was shared earlier. And if you are interested to take part and your CV matches the requirements of this terms of reference, then you can reach out and submit your application through the website. After which we will do a recruitment process. But being employed is not necessary. We do see that a lot of our participants are indeed employed and are doing this on the side, but equally we have people that are indeed in between jobs or are reorienting themselves and in this period deciding to opt for an assignment. So this is definitely a possibility.
Okay, thanks, Nina. There is also a question here for Zuhur. Thank you for sharing your story. It's very interesting to hear that you were received by your Somali colleagues. Did you face any challenges coming as a woman who is coming to give advice to people at the ministry? Interesting question, Zuhur, and I think it's actually also a good question for Jella, because indeed we have two female diaspora experts with us, and sometimes gender dynamics are indeed a bit different in countries of origin. So Zuhur, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you for your question, first of all. And did I face challenges as a woman? Unfortunately, yes, I have. It was a challenge every day, but it's all about how you as a woman also take criticism and handle people's way of communicating with you, I think. You have to be very strong mentally, and you have to not take a lot of things with a grain of salt, to be really honest. If they say one thing to you, you just accept and you say yes, and then you have to find ways to still do what it is that you think was best, but then via other routes, basically, so that it still can get done. But of course, at the same time, you also have to try to change their mindset and also make them understand that, in this day and age, women, luckily are very educated as well, and they also know a thing or two about certain topics. So it was challenging, but it really depends on how you yourself are able to handle it.
Yeah, thanks, Zuhur. And Jella, what was your experience being a woman?
Yeah, being a woman. In my first assignment, I didn't speak about it. In the first assignment, it was a little bit more tricky because I was fresh from the fresh out of the boat, let's say, in the sense that you would think that, oh, they are courts like me, so they all think like me, but it's not. So you need to know indeed that they look differently to women, and they have a different perspective of how you sit and how you smile. Even a smile can mean something else in this culture, of course. It has become much better now, I have to say. And in the current assignment, I really feel at ease. It's also, I work also mainly on sexual and gender-based violence, which is more female-led, and they actually invite females to do this job as well. So that's the positive side. But in the beginning, yes, if you're very much in your European culture status, you come there, it's gonna be a little bit shocking, yeah.
A little bit of a shock.
But I have to say, very quickly, you also learn to use that their how do you say, vooroordeel? What do you say in English again?
Yeah, prejudice.
Yeah, you can use their prejudice for your own advancement as well as something that I've learned in a diplomatic manner. Huh? So you pretend you don't know things, and they're willing to help you, but actually you will help the project. So that's good.
Yeah, very interesting. I see you found your way.
Yeah.
There's actually a question related to that, which I would like to ask to both of you. Was there any briefing that you received maybe before your assignment or as part of your assignment on how to cope with some of these differences, how to deal with counterparts in Somalia or in Iraq?
Yes, we did receive, or I received a course by IOM. Very, very useful course as well, because I had zero expectations going back how it was going to be. But it gave me a more realistic view on how it could be when I went back to Hargeisa. And yes, the answer is yes, we did receive it.
It's a question from one of the participants. That's why I'm relaying it back to you, Jella.
Yeah, I was together with Zuhur when we had this.
Okay. You're in the same class.
It's true, yeah. And it was very nice to also share experience and to finally hear like, oh yeah, I had that too, and no, I did it this way, so maybe that's a good tip for you. So we do also exchange notes.
Great. I see a lot more questions that come up. So let me have a moment and look at that. First of all, just to tell all participants that we also shared a vacancy page here where you can actually check out opportunities for assignments for diaspora experts. So if the two colleagues here, Zuhur and Jella, inspired you, please do look at the vacancies. Perhaps there is something out there for you. Then there is also another question whether there are any plans from IOM and CD4D concerning the Syrian diaspora in the Netherlands. Nina, could I perhaps address that to you?
Sure, thank you. Yes, well, the current project, the phase 2 CD4D, has 4 countries included that I've mentioned before, and within the scope of that particular project, there isn't scope to add new countries at this point. Of course, we are very open and always looking for different ways of engaging diaspora. Specifically related to Syria, maybe it's good to mention that we do need some prerequisites for us to be able to implement a project, like some sort of stability, and of course a level of institutions and a government system that we can work with. So these are prerequisites. So of course, if we're talking about a country in war, it becomes a bit more challenging. And the other thing is, of course, if diaspora are willing to engage, and this again is also linked to the security situation, but also their legal status. We're within CD40, we work with people that either have also the Dutch nationality or a permanent resident permit, so that they're also able to return to their country of origin and do these assignments. And for Syrians that are usually a bit shorter in the Netherlands, that would also be difficult. So these are kind of to set the parameters a little bit, but in general, this is something in the future definitely we would be very interested in exploring further.
Yeah, Nina, and I received another question for you. How the project has navigated around personal interests of diaspora members and the interests of communities in countries of origin. Could you say something around that?
Yes, maybe it's very good to indeed mention that the project is demand driven. So within the parameters of the project, meaning the countries, of course, that we've included in collaboration and coordination with our donor, the ministry, we then furthermore liaise with the governments in the target countries on what their specific focus would be within the project. So there we see what the priority sectors should be that are identified, and then within the sectors with which institutions or organizations we work. And these organizations then also draft the terms of references. Of course, while we are in coordination with the governments, we also check what is the general profile of the diaspora in the Netherlands and maybe also sometimes in the other EU countries, so that we're also able to then, combine demand and supply, if you will. So this is how we organize that.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps links to another question that was raised about why these countries particularly have been chosen, and is that also linked to, numbers of diaspora members in the Netherlands?
Yes, that's indeed the case. This is my daughter.
Nice to see you. We're all in the reality of working from home. So.
A few reasons that tie into the suggestion, or the reasons for choosing the countries are connected to indeed the number of diaspora that we have in the Netherlands. So the potential for diaspora to contribute. It's also linked to, of course, donor priority. So in this case, also what the Dutch MFA has in terms of partnership countries, and so a combination of these factors, plus of course whether we have a presence in the country that we target. So do we have an island office, and can we work with colleagues there very closely too?
Yeah. And someone is asking whether this is also open to diaspora from other European countries, or you have to be Dutch to participate in the project?
The project primarily focuses on Dutch diaspora, so diaspora in the Netherlands. But when there are terms of references for which we cannot find a suitable candidate, it is also indeed open to other EU countries and also UK countries. But we do this more limitedly, because the first of course is on the Dutch.
Yeah. And of course, it links to another question that someone asked: do we have similar diaspora projects in other IOM offices in Europe? Yes, indeed. We took CD4D because it's it was a nice one to demonstrate. But we have other projects, for example, Finland, particularly for Somalia, working in health and education sectors. Also, IOM Italy manages a number of diaspora engagement projects. So CD4D is indeed not the only one. And there was also a question linked to indeed evaluation, and how do we evaluate also the impact and the sustainability of the projects, of the assignments. And I see Charlotte of the University of Maastricht, who will be speaking at our panel later, already shared also the external evaluation of CD4D, because indeed we find it important to evaluate impact, and the University of Maastricht has been helping us in that effort and already put a link to the report in the chat. Perhaps I can have a final question for both Jella and Zuhur, if that's okay, because I see participants have a lot of questions for us. So I will actually combine two questions here for you. The first one is, what type of approach of knowledge transfer was helpful to you? So how did you go about this knowledge transfer? And secondly, how people in your home country receive these efforts? Jella, would you like to start?
The first question is how it was for me, or do you mean
what kind of knowledge transfer methodology did you use? What was your approach to transfer the knowledge back to, yeah.
Okay, well, basically it's on the job training that I actually conduct with them, and which is something that, as I have also worked there for 3 years, is highly demanded. A lot of people, you can give them trainings all you want, with all of the papers, these are the principles, and you just hold on to these principles. They need to know how it looks like in action. So when they are doing this job, how do you do that? So that's actually the methodology, and it was well received because that's what they needed. They don't want to sit there a whole day in waiting for the lunch, basically, and then doze off.
Listening to
right?
lengthy presentations.
Yeah, that's my experience of 3 to 4 years working there. I think on the job training you get things done, and you create also a team. For me, I'm very much an accessible person for there as well. They first have a very happy girl to talk to. We talked about already the gender, so you get more things done, and you have also the team bonding. I think that in the cultures here is oftentimes there is no feeling of team, and that's something that you also can create. Is a culture, a happy and a healthy working sphere and a culture.
Yeah, and how were your efforts received in the home country?
By both institutions, they are very much welcomed, and especially here, where what I'm doing right now for the international law is that because they were crying actually for it. The problem here in this country is right now is that there is no money anymore. And they need capacity, and the people here, they are passionate about their job, and they are part of this community that has been displaced, this community that is seeking for justice because they were once those victims of war. And so they are very much welcome to it. I didn't have any experience, but maybe Zuhur has other experience.
Yeah, let's hear from
When you
Zuhur.
touch money, that's different, I think.
Exactly.
My experiences. Well, in the beginning, as I mentioned earlier, it was quite difficult. One, because I had a very different way of working from them. I was very strict, very controlling, very on time with everything, planning ahead. That unfortunately doesn't work. Then I also found out, as Gila is just told us, they do not like to sit in a room and look at a screen while you're explaining ABC to them. Furthermore, I didn't bring drinks, so they were upset that I didn't bring drinks. That's another thing that I found out. So that was a quick no for me after that. So what I did then is, even though I had the office arranged by management for me, I decided to just sit in their office and be one of the team, basically, and tell them or ask them questions on how they work and how they do things, and then just look through the books with them and do the daily chores with them, basically. And then eventually, slowly but surely, I would then try to explain, oh, by the way, I know a different way of doing this that could be easier for you. Would you like to learn, or would you like to see how I would do it? And then that would ease them into it, instead of me being there as a teacher and telling them, well, you have to do this. So it was, furthermore, I've also really realized people do not like to be criticized. And people, it does not matter how you explain it to them. The moment they hear the word, this is wrong, they will not listen to you anymore. It's done. They will not like you. So never use the words wrong. This is not right. You're doing it wrong. No, don't use that at all. So yeah.
Well, the last point, Zuhur, I fully agree with you, and especially with when you're legally trained, you know because that's what you're here to judge, basically. In law. The thing is that what I have learned is, indeed, you cannot say this is wrong. What I now do is say, oh, but this is the jurisdiction of, let's say, a country B, let's say Netherlands. In the Netherlands, the jurisdiction works differently. So that way you can use actually the other countries that I work with a lot of European countries right now on the jurisdiction aspects. So I can always blame them now instead of blaming my colleagues or my teams. I will say, oh, in other countries it's this.
Sounds like a good approach.
And also, one thing that I've also realized is very important for the people that you are working with is that they are able to teach you something as well. When they feel a sense of importance and that they can do something back to you, it helps tremendously. For example, my Somali was not amazing when I went back. I was able to have a normal conversation, but actual presentations and being able to have a formal business way of speaking, I was not good at it. So I initially also went in asking them, could you teach me this? Because I don't know. Which also gives them a perspective of, oh, hold on, she's also here to learn about her own language and her own culture. She's actually willing to allow us to be there for her as well, which was very important. So it's mutually beneficial. Make sure it's mutually beneficial.
It's a mutual exchange and mutual sharing of experience. Thank you so much, both to Jela and Zuhur, for sharing their testimonies, their experience. I find it very inspiring, and I hope it will inspire others as well. So thank you so much. And I think we're now ready to move on to the next part of the webinar, where we're going to look at the dossier on diaspora inclusion that was published by the broker together with IOM and Partos. And we have with us Kiza Magendane, who is a knowledge broker at the broker. He's a passionate political scientist, writer, and strategic policy advisor who works on citizenship, identity, globalization, and the position of Africa in the world. So he has written several articles on diaspora inclusion for the broker in collaboration with IOM. And I'm very happy to hand over to Kiza, who will tell us a bit more about his dossier on diaspora inclusion and will also moderate the panel that will follow. So Kiza, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Gertrouw. It's really an honor to present our common magazine today and to have the panel conversation. Maybe go back to the previous sheet, please, Marvin. So I'll introduce, my name is Kiza Magendane and I work as a knowledge organization, actually building bridges between various worlds of knowledge, as we say it. It means that we connect academic research with policy and practice. We synthesize available knowledge and present it in an accessible manner to the targeted audience by writing reports and magazines, by organizing workshops and expert meetings, but also by organizing online and knowledge dossiers. And then the next two sheets, please, Marvin. As we have done for the diaspora, and then the next one, for the diaspora inclusion dossier, we wanted to explore how the potential of the diaspora can be harnessed for the Dutch development agenda. And we asked this question based actually for two reasons. In the first place, we observed a gap between existing assumptions and the policy practice. The assumptions Nina has introduced in the beginning, but also Gertrude, that both within academic circle and policy circles, there is a consensus that the diaspora can play an important role for the sustainable development of their home country. It is an assumption that the Dutch government also subscribed to. At the same time, however, we have seen a policy shift in the previous years when it's come to the Dutch policies on migration and development, where there is a growing conviction, you could say it's a diaspora fatigue of skepticism, that there is no need to actively engage the diaspora. And then the second reason, in addition to this, we saw that there is actually a big gap between the diaspora organizations, civil societies, entrepreneurs, and the Dutch development communities, INGOs, and the Dutch policymakers. So as a knowledge broker, we thought it's important to facilitate a constructive dialogue on how the potential of the diaspora can contribute to the Dutch development agenda. As mentioned, this focus on the Dutch context and the African diaspora, but we hope that once you read the magazine and our dossier online, that you might find interesting insight for you. Maybe the next sheet for the method that we applied. We invited various people from various fields, so academia, private sector, diaspora, and government to reflect on the question about how the diaspora can be included. In the first phase of this research, we collaborated with Partos, the Dutch membership body of development organizations, because as I mentioned, we hoped to bring both the diaspora community and the development community together. So collaborating with Partos was a very logical way to do, because the organization is also interested to find ways on how development interventions can be innovated, and the inclusion of the diaspora is one of the ways. So after these featured articles on our website, we organized a workshop with experts where the findings were validated and reflected on. And based on that, we wrote a synthesis with implications for policy. So both for practitioners, development organizations, and policymakers, the Dutch government. And then based on this first phase of the research, IOM, and it makes sense because I think we have discovered why this dossier really fits to IOM thoughts. Yeah, we are interested in your reflection. Maybe it is good to do a further exploration. And that's what we did in the second phase of this dossier by doing an in-depth exploration on diaspora inclusion, engagement, by focusing on knowledge transfers, the first part of this conversation, and entrepreneurship. And we also wrote a synthesis with the implications for policy, and also published a magazine that you can access after this event, and you can also find the link in the chat. So next sheet, please. To give you some a short overview of the findings, and I hope that you read the magazine for a broad understanding. Overall, through knowledge transfer and private sector engagement and entrepreneurship, diaspora have the potential indeed to contribute to the sustainable development of their home country. And one of the reasons given by various contributors has to do with their unique position as bridge builders between the two worlds. One of the contributors, Saskia Kluseman, mentioned that diaspora have an international mind and a local heart, which actually make, it is a unique position to have, and it also influenced their way of acting. And I think the two examples, testimonies that we just showed today confirm that. At the same time, despite this unique position, there are also challenges related to being a diaspora, especially if you want to engage in entrepreneurship. One of them is the lack of social and financial capital. So you have to think about network, role models, and mentorship, or starting capital compared to the Dutch peers. It seems that diaspora have actually, a disadvantage when they want to engage in business activities with their home country. At the same time, there are existing misconceptions, both negative and positives, about the diaspora. The investors community tends to look at the diaspora from a negative perspective and not really on their plans and what they're able to do. And there are also other misconceptions, especially from people, from institutions, governments, and members in their home country who tend to think that diaspora has a lot of financial capacity and that they can actively invest in their home country, which is not necessarily the case. Related to that, diaspora also have other misconceptions about their home country because they live in these two worlds, but sometimes they tend to think from a Dutch perspective. So if you want to actually make diaspora inclusion a success, you have to take these challenges into account. So take away the barriers by creating an enabling environment. And you can think about training programs to facilitate knowledge and create a network for the diaspora entrepreneurs, but also maybe creation of a special fund that focus on minority groups and the diaspora, including the diaspora. And we will discuss those interventions, and you can find more ideas in the magazine and the dossier, because we have a panel. Maybe a small catch up for on the next sheet, please, Marvin. So it's important not to miss the boat because diaspora will eventually be involved in their home country. That's what we have learned, and it will lead to success. The question is, when will institutions and government intervene? And one very important key is that diaspora inclusion is not a charity, but it's a smart strategy. It's both cost effective and efficient. And also it is a way to complement existing development efforts. Diaspora entrepreneurship has been identified as a way to create generational wealth. At least that's what we have learned in this dossier. So for policymakers, also with COVID, if you read our magazine, you will find that COVID-19 has generated interesting insight about the importance of changing the way we work, and the inclusion of the diaspora can be part of that strategy. Thank you very much. Please, the next slide. If you have questions for the conversations, you can just use the chat. Gerta will share those with me. You have my details, and please see the chat for the access to the magazine or our websites. You can also send me an email. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my next panel. They all contributed to the magazine as experts. I will introduce them one by one. First, we have Charlotte Miller, who is a PhD researcher at the Maastricht Graduate School of Governance, and she focused on migration and development. And in her PhD, she focused on return migration, diaspora, and knowledge transfer. And then we have Frida Tarangwi, who is the founder of Zidi Circle, an entrepreneurship and financing ecosystem supporting diaspora and investors to build impactful ventures, both abroad in their country of origin. And last but not least, we have Marina Diboma, who is a managing director of the Netherlands African Business Council. That's an organization that connects the Dutch private sector with their African counterparts. By the way, Marina and Frida, could you please open your camera already, because I see Charlotte here. And Marina has been working for the NIBC since 2009. She has led more than 30 business missions to to Africa for the Dutch private sector and the other way around. I don't know whether I can see you.
I can see you.
There you are. So thank you for contributing to our dossier. It was a pleasure for me to learn from you. I wanted to start with you, Charlotte, as let me start with a general question for all of you. Based on your expertise, and I start with Charlotte, what do you see the added value of diaspora inclusion and diaspora engagement as an academic?
Yes, thank you, Kiza. It's really nice to participate in this event and also to be included in this year. So I mean, there are different ways how diasporas can contribute to development in their country of origin. And so one way is to transfer the knowledge and the expertise. And so at Maastricht University, we've been evaluating the CD4D program. And so this is one example of a way to formalize this diaspora knowledge transfer. And our evaluation really shows that facilitating knowledge transfer in the way that IOM the Netherlands does with CD4D is an effective way to allow diaspora members to contribute to development in their countries of origin. And so we really see that there are three areas of contributions. So diaspora members contribute to knowledge and skills of individual staff members. Then some diaspora members have also been able to increase organizational capacity at some host institutions. And then we also see that the impact goes beyond direct knowledge transfer, because we see that some diaspora members have been able to make connections to institutions in the Netherlands, or they have been able to connect staff from the host institutions to their network. So I think that actually really illustrates quite well the positive effects that diaspora inclusion can have for the development agenda.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And these three insights were based on the first evaluation of CD4D. And I think we actually saw very good examples during this conversation where Jayla at the moment is staying in the country thanks to this program. And I think it's the third aspect, that it goes beyond the program. Do you see that these insights confirm existing insights there in academic research, or were there other things that surprised you when you were doing this first evaluation of CD4D?
Yeah, so what has to be noted, those diaspora programs have been very popular, but there have been few evaluations on that, or then maybe there have been internal evaluations, but there were no external evaluations, so the results weren't published. So there used to be quite little information on the effectiveness of those programs. So this is really what we're trying to contribute to with the CD4D evaluation, that we really are able to examine the enablers and the inhibitors for what works in those programs.
Yes, and that's also what your PhD research focuses on. And maybe before I go to Frida, why is it important for academic research, and you make this focus on diaspora migration and development? Why is it an important research field, and maybe what can policy makers and multilateral organizations, INGOs, learn from this field of research?
Yeah, I think what is really important then for policymakers is that CD4D is an example of like a targeted initiative. So I think what is important for policymakers is to support those targeted initiatives, which actually create what you also mentioned before, the enabling environment or the framework for engagement for diaspora members. Because what we see with CD4D is actually that it provides the financial administrative support for diaspora members. It also selects diaspora members based on their skills, and diaspora members are matched to selected host institutions. So it creates this framework for engagement. So this seems really important.
Yes, and I think on the second part of this conversation, we'll go much more in the conditions that knowledge transfer program has to meet in order to generate success, because this conversation is based in two parts. First, we explore this question, and then maybe for the present institutions here, what can we actually do starting from today? I would like to go to Frida now. Also the same question, Frida. Can you tell us, based on your expertise as an entrepreneur, how do you see the added value of including the diaspora in the game? You are muted there, Frida, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I was used to,
Yes.
to mute. Thank you very much, Kiza, and I'm very happy to be here today and join this valuable conversation. I will dwell on the topic of entrepreneurship, diaspora entrepreneurship, and I'll use the term inclusive entrepreneurship because we have to see where we are coming from. Yeah, definitely a lot of barriers for diaspora. Sometimes they are nowhere here, nowhere there when it comes to, you know, being considered as, you know, being reflected or considered with a particular region or even country. On those country where they live, you know, they have a lot of challenges. When they go back to their country of origin, it's you know, very difficult for them to you know, to still be considered as a local. So on the part of entrepreneurship and what inclusion means, of course, we've seen all the world economies, big economies have been built on entrepreneurship. When it comes to developing countries or emerging markets, entrepreneurs are already doing a very big contribution to you know, to just even development, to building the economies. And so then this brings me to the last thing, you know, why would we leave out diaspora? You know, one, they have the best of both worlds when it comes to, you know, not just knowledge, not background, not exposure. You know, I've been come from two different worlds. So I would say, and that's the basis of ZD Circle. It's creating that inclusive ecosystem, entrepreneurship ecosystem for the diaspora, where they are able to access all the resources, you know, that they need. And of course, you know, we can only expect much from the diaspora after we do some work. You know, we need to have proper programs that empower them, that give them the right ecosystem, you know, to become successful. And definitely, I mean, everyone wants to have good businesses, right? Not just even in Europe. If the diaspora are doing good businesses in Europe and they're succeeding, they have all the resources. Europe, if they come back to Africa in whichever country and they're being successful businesses there, you know, the African countries and continent benefit. And of course, in reverse, the Western countries as well benefit. So we see our all-round scenario, you know, when it comes to having diaspora entrepreneurs included, and as an agent of development, definitely we cannot underestimate all the benefits. So definitely we need to really mobilize more. We need more people to join us. We were the first incubation program for the diaspora, you know, focusing on them setting up their businesses, not just where they live, as well as abroad. And for example, in the Netherlands, we are also working with Interstat, that of course focuses on them, diaspora and migrants setting up businesses there locally. And of course, at a larger scale, ZD Circle is having different programs for the African diaspora, especially when it comes to them setting up businesses in the countries of origin. Thank you.
Isa, you're muted.
Yeah.
Yes, so Frida, it's really important that you mentioned something about your program. I have two small questions for you. One is, why did you decide to create ZD Circle? For the other, I know the answer already, but for people, they can also read the magazine. And also related to that, maybe you can tell us something about this program, the Diaspora Entrepreneurship boot camp, because I think it really fits to the plea you just made about the importance of including diaspora in the business, in the private sector, or enabling a diaspora to conduct businesses.
Thank you, Kiza. Of course, it's my own personal story. At first, when I came to the Netherlands about 6 years ago, of course, I came to study. I had worked I'm of Kenyan origin, so I had worked in Kenya in the financial sector. And then when I migrated to the Netherlands, of course, after doing my master's and working, I worked for a pension fund. I worked for an emerging markets, a financial advisory institution. And I think that's where I came face to face with the challenges that entrepreneurs were facing, especially in the African market, because that was my focus market or country or continent then. You know, I thought, well, what can I do to help SMEs in the African continent? And this means they had access to funding, they had problems understanding the products, the financing products. They had no capacity, you know, they needed more improvement. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start my business in that. And then I faced the barrier that you're referring to, Kiza. First of all, I didn't, you know, of course, I'm very good at Google. So I went Googled all the websites in the Netherlands. But then there was one thing that was missing, you know, I needed to find African entrepreneurs that I could talk to, you know, that had done it before me, that could mentor me, that could, you know, just show me around, right? And I think that was my first challenge. And I was, of course, I still support SMEs in Africa, and I'll still explain to you how I have combined that with the diaspora entrepreneurship. And I was there wondering then, what am I trying to do, right? There are so many diaspora migrants living in the Netherlands, living in the European Union, who probably have gone through the same thing. Some faced barriers and they stopped. Some probably went on, but then we are not seeing them. So I said, well, I think I'm going to change course because I had already too much knowledge on business and of course also financing. So I said, I'm just going to do the most difficult thing, yeah? Try to create an inclusive entrepreneurship program or ecosystem where I could see people who look like me really come, you know, get all the knowledge that they need. If they need mentors, you know, they'll get them. If they need funding, they'll get them. If they need market entry partners, they'll get them. And actually that's how ZD Circle was born. And now coming to the program.
Very short, Frida, given the time.
Oh yeah, yes. So the program, we started with the Dutch Diaspora Entrepreneurship Program. And on this program, we just do training on the business aspects, you know, business ideas, which need to be really sustainable, and then helping the businesses develop good products. Then we go to customer acquisition, and we go all the way to how do they price these products, how do they use the resources that they have, how do they then even fundraise for their business. So we develop a 2 months business training program, and after that we do 4 months of mentorship. We connect them to mentors, and even what's unique is that we use mentors from the diaspora, and we do monthly coaching. We've also been able to do programs, you know, outside. Of course, don't think that it's just a Dutch program. We also include now, since the COVID-19, we've opened it up to all European Union diaspora entrepreneurs as well as globally. And one last thing, Kiza, before I go, it's important to say this because now we've created a program that combines the diaspora and connects them to their country of origin and gives them a soft funding. And one of these programs is that, for example, in Ghana, together with SNB, we are creating a matchmaking program where they are incubating SMEs and startups in Ghana, and we're incubating ours in the diaspora program. And we are bringing them together to say, you know, if we can have productive partnerships, you can have mentors, we can have them fund each other. And the other program is a tech program in Kenya, where we have tech developers in Kenya develop or give tech solutions for the diaspora entrepreneurs. I have a lot to say, but that's it for now. Thank you.
Yes, and people can find the information online. And also for a broader understanding of your approach, they can access the magazine. Marina, you are Managing Director of the Netherlands African Business Council. And in the conversation with you, you actually explained us the importance of creating, collaborating, and actually to rethink how we see aid or development. You don't believe in aid, but you think entrepreneurship is the way for Africa to grow. Also for you, the same question. How do you see the added value of the diaspora to realize sustainable development? And maybe in relation to that, if you can tell us something about the importance of collaboration and the role of the diaspora in that.
Thank you very much, Kiza. Good morning, everyone. Great pleasure to be part of this interesting discussion. I've been listening from the start. And to start with, I think diaspora inclusion lead to sustainable win-win partnerships. When we talk about partnership, it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, right? I think it has been mentioned already before how the diaspora can play an important role as a bridge builder. I even want to call diaspora diplomats, because they understand both the context of their host countries and the one in their country of origins. They are able to bring in new perspectives to the organizations and countries where they're living. I think diaspora inclusion can, through entrepreneurship, through business, can strengthen the economic relationship between their host countries and their countries of origin. We see that, we know that if I have to stay close to my expertise, I work on Africa, strengthen economic relationship between the Netherlands and Africa. What I've been able to witness is see that a lot of Dutch companies are doing business successfully with the let's say the support of diaspora who are part of their teams. Having diaspora part of their companies makes it easier for them to take that step. We know that Africa is still, let's say, represented here in this part of the world, and it's sometimes challenging for companies to really take that step and decide to go to the continent. And with the diaspora, they're able to open doors. This diaspora have a local network. They understand the local culture and also the culture here in the Netherlands. They speak the language, so they open, and they also understand how certain products can be introduced in a local market, because as I always say, the marketing strategy in the Netherlands will not be the same as in Nigeria or Ghana. And we have 54 countries, 54 different ways of working. And I see also diaspora as a strong investor in their countries of origin, with in collaboration with European companies. It's a good way also to contribute to knowledge development, to job creation, as we know, for instance, when talking about the African diaspora, that the continent is facing a high rate of unemployment among the youth, and most governments are crying for job creation, and that will only come from private sector. And I think that the diaspora has an important role to play in there as well. Earlier on, it was also mentioned that having diaspora playing the role of experts in their field of expertise, it's important. We're listening to the testimonial on the CD4D program. I think this is also a good way to connect diaspora in capacity building programs. I think most of them have knowledge, but they will not be necessarily the one putting in place initiatives that will lead to knowledge transfer locally. And this is a good way to have them included in such initiative initiated by European governments or international organizations to be implemented locally. By doing so, they're filling that knowledge gap. And I think that when we listen to the testimonial of Zuhu and Chela, they're really, I had a lot of aha moments of like deja experience moments when you go there as a diaspora to as an expert to transfer knowledge. You're part of the team. You are part because you come, you have two hats. It's easy for you to switch the hats without frustrating anyone. You can easily also get close to the people you have to work there locally to create understanding, mutual understanding, and have a working relationship where there respect is at the center. In the end, it will be clear for everyone involved that responsibility. It's a shared responsibility for the success of the project, of the program. I think, yeah. In short, I would say the diaspora leads to, just like Frida said, to inclusive development and successful partnership for all involved.
Thank you for this rich descriptive. I have a question on this aha moment, but first I have to look at Gertrouw. Gertrouw, please, given the time, we started a bit late, and I have a second part of this conversation. Is it okay for the participants if we go 10 minutes extra?
I'm not sure, Kiza. I also see some questions in the chat for you and the panelists. That
so I'll try to be sharp.
We could look into these questions.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see the questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to
I can see the questions and make a selection. It's important for people to know that you can send the questions afterwards also, or at least we will try also to answer some unanswered questions. So that's important to mention.
Yeah.
The aha
because
moment.
Some participants might need to leave us around 11:30. So, Kiza, I do think that in a few minutes we have to start wrapping up, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. So it's good to know. For people who are interested in Marina's story and vision, please read the magazine because she also explains about her role as a leader of a trade mission and how people can recognize in her, given her diaspora perspective, as like someone who said, I felt like you saw me. And I think that's an important, you're a living example of that, Marina, given your perspective. And now, given the time, maybe very short, what we can do starting today. I will start with Frida. You also gave some answers in your dossier on what the government and the private sector can do. I have around 3 minutes. Maybe if you can keep it very short, what we can do to harness this potential of the diaspora.
Thank you very much, Kiza. Well, I think the first thing is that we need affirmative action. And that's because, of course, one, there's a lot of misconception, not just by government or multinational institutions, but also general population, that, the diaspora have money or the diaspora cannot be relied upon. So to change this kind of narrative, we need to create programs. ED4D program was one of the very good examples. I also see a lot of subsidies being lumped up and, being, just generalized, to be more specific. But at the same time, you cannot compare diaspora with the local players. Yeah. So we need subsidies also that can be used by migrants and diaspora, just to promote and make it a very inclusive ecosystem. The other thing that I'm like, I think that the governments and policymakers can help is to do something to continue building and strengthening the infrastructures that are there, developing programs. And I think the IOM again is a good example on creating a very good program that the Ethiopian and Ghanaian diasporas were able to be given all the capacity to open businesses in their countries of origin. But also when they run in their countries of origin, I think we need governments to create that enabling environment for them to be able to quickly settle in and get the support structure that they need. And of course, the other thing that I would like to see happening a lot is having, a consolidated and a database for diaspora because they are very geographically scattered. And so when even private sector want to help, they do not have the right data that they can help. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Frida. I have some questions here, but I would like Marina to tell us something very short about starting a fund. It's an idea that you had, maybe to build on what Frida has mentioned. Please try to be very short before Gertrude
Yes,
comes after me.
I will try to be very short. I wanted to mention something else to point out the importance of having diaspora as a workforce. Because I see, let's say, a lot of Dutch companies, for instance, that still don't find it hard to find African talents. I think there's the diaspora talents across Europe. This is a workforce that is really still untapped. They have the opportunity, a lot to offer to these companies that want to grow their business in developing markets. And I'm very proud that NABC is currently implementing a project called Match, a project that promotes legal pathways for high skills talents from Nigeria and Senegal to be part of Dutch companies. But due to COVID-19, this program is now open for Nigerian diaspora and Senegalese diaspora currently based in Europe. With regards to funds, I think Frida mentioned that access to finance is still a huge challenge. And I think I mentioned that also in my interview, that diaspora lacks social and financial capital. I think European governments can be inspired by the initiative that was launched last year by the Canadian government. They launched a program called the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which is a $221 million program that was established by the Canadian government in partnership with knowledge institutions, Black-led organizations, and local banks in order to promote Black entrepreneurship, to strengthen Black entrepreneurship, and to also gain knowledge and understanding of the challenges and opportunities for Black business. I think it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but that can be the European governments can be inspired by such an initiative to bring together various actors. That's because we need an integrated approach. It's only through synergies that we establish strong collaborations, that we have impact. I think that's something that can be also led by European governments in order to enable diaspora entrepreneurs to build companies not only back to their countries of origin, but also in their host countries, because who said that Black diaspora entrepreneurs are not the employers of the future, and we need those role models in order to also empower the young generation currently growing up.
Thank you. I have people take notes, Marina, policymakers, and then we go to Charlotte. In your research, you mentioned some preconditions that a knowledge transfer program has to meet in order to generate success. And of course, the research is still going. Maybe you also have something that you would like to share on how we can harness the potential of the diaspora when it comes to knowledge transfer.
Of course. So what we see specifically for the CD40 project from the evaluation of the first phase is that it's really important how these projects are designed and structured. And so it's important that they're well structured and that diaspora experts have assistance wherever it's needed. What we also see that it's important that there's a focus on knowledge transfer during all assignments. That also means that diaspora members are being trained pre-assignment, and that it's defined in that way in the terms of reference of all assignments. It's then also important that there's trust between diaspora members and host institution staff, because trust is really an important precondition for knowledge transfer. And we've seen that factors that are important are the time, so that there needs to be enough time for knowledge transfer to happen, and also colleagues need to have enough room to actually practice and then apply the knowledge that they gained from the diaspora members. So of course there are other aspects, but those are the aspects that I would like to highlight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlotte, for that contribution. I'm going to give Geertrouw now the floor. It's important for a reminder, all questions directed to me, I'll try to reach you through email. And also there are also other questions that have been, you can find by reading the magazine, because we only had in half an hour, so I hope you understand that. But Geertrouw, the floor is yours. It is such an interesting exploration, but we have limited time.
We can keep on discussing. It is super interesting indeed.
Thanks
and I
for
really
having us.
thank you. I thank you, Kisa, and all the panelists to introduce, your thinking and the dossier on diaspora inclusion. Indeed, we had a number of interesting questions and comments in the chat, and maybe I'll just quickly refer to some. Someone is mentioning that, in the case of another program assisting migrants to set up businesses, they saw that jealousy can be a real barrier, and this could be removed by mainstreaming right from the start and ensuring that support progress for entrepreneurs in locally existing programs is also available. I think that was an interesting comment relating to the jealousy. People are also very much interested in Charlotte's work and what she mentioned, and wondering if something is already published before her PhD, comes out. So Charlotte, if you have anything you want to point, participants to, feel free to share it in the chat. And others also are asking if maybe the webinar can be made available and some of the resources. And indeed, we will share with all participants afterwards the recording to the webinar. So if you couldn't attend it in full, no worries, you can watch it again. Plus, we'll also share some of the resources that were mentioned here. So you can, of course, read more and get in touch also with the panelists should you have more questions. And then finally, before we close, I also want to give the floor to Louisa from ADEPT for a very final reflection on what was said today. Louisa is actually a representative of ADEPT, and ADEPT is the Africa-Europe Diaspora Development Platform. So, Louise, I'm happy to give you the final word of this webinar.
Yes, thank you, Geertrouw. I will be very quick because I was taking notes on the comments on Jelle and Zuhur. Thank you very much. That I would say, let us look as well at the long-term solution. And actually, Frida gave the answer. So let's start with the database on the diaspora. And also looking at the new generation of diaspora that is coming up, and how to work together in the interaction between the diaspora, the local organizations, the government, and the established organizations. And quick in what Kisa said and Marina, often we refer diaspora as the bridges, but the bridge has to be built yet. So I would like to refer the diaspora as the supplemental to the government and the locals in Africa, and complemental to Europe and the institutions in Europe. So that means the private sector and everything. So these are very short the comments. And I would like also to see regional consultations towards the Africa as continent in what they need from us diaspora and how we can help. So for us to going out from what are the needs to what I want to get out of it. So very quick, and I share.
Thank you. Thank you, Louisa, and participants will also find the link in the chat to the ADEPT platform, a platform, promoting diaspora development, Africa, Europe, open also to all organizations working in that area. So please do go and check. And then only to say thank you to all the participants. I'm sorry we went shortly over time, but it was a very interesting discussion. And I really thank all of you for the participation, for the interest. We'll be in touch with you soon, and I hope that together we can continue supporting the inclusion of diaspora in sustainable development. Thank you so much, and have a very nice rest of the day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for having us.